Wimbledon has been stripped of rankings points. G'day and welcome to this Australian Open Live, and it's the Spotlight Series, and today we're shining a spotlight on Wimbledon 2022. Wimbledon has been stripped of rankings points. Why did that happen? Well, we're not going to explain it here, but it's definitely impacted the tournament, and our series will be investigating how this came about. And then we're going to go through a different episode. We'll address, we're going to be looking at reviewing the situation, how it came about. We're not getting political or commentating or entering into any sort of speculation one way or the other. We hope this will be a topic of interest coming up over the next couple of weeks, and a few episodes there to whet your appetite for Wimbledon. And as we like to do, presenting some content with a difference, about the players behind the stats, the topics behind the stats, behind the scenes, and just aggregating all this information into one place that you can't get anywhere else. We tell stories, and our story is tennis. We want to introduce you to an upcoming series that's going to play throughout the lead up to Wimbledon and possibly after. Don't go away, we'll be right back. We tell stories, and our story is tennis. And with Wimbledon being stripped of rankings points for its 2022 tournament, we're exploring the issues and player reactions. And in episode 3, we're going to be getting into some really murky territory. We're apolitical, we're not looking for any controversy, but in looking at the reaction of worldwide media and also Australian media, we're going to be getting stuck into some pretty juicy topics. And diving in, first of all, we're going to look at some comments by John McEnroe, and then we'll be looking at some flow-on issues around that bleed out from his comments, reflecting back on the Australian Open in January 2022. And then we're going to focus on some expert commentary from one of our favourite leading Australian tennis broadcasters, Brett Phillips and his team at the First Serve. And boy, haven't they got some interesting comments for and against. And this is the only media outlet that we've found in our research even bothering to look at the for and against from being as objective as they possibly can. And for the moment, we'll leave you with the sights, sounds, summer of Australia, the Australian Open 2022. Don't go away, we'll be right back. So let's start with someone who was never a stranger to controversy in his playing career, John McEnroe, the original wild child of grass court tennis, the one who brought sportsmanship and competitiveness, brought a whole new meaning to those two character traits in what was expected of a professional, well, semi-professional, as it was in the 70s, semi-professional tennis players, as the sport groaned and heaved under the weight of the way the world was changing back in the 70s. And you think Nick Kyrgios, box office Nick Kyrgios, has a few bad habits on court? Well, guess who the grandfather of that behaviour is? It's John McEnroe, and now a very respectable commentator in worldwide tennis media, pretty much at all Grand Slams these days, commenting. His outlook, well, he was bemoaning the Wimbledon situation after the rankings points were stripped, and for him it was a lose-lose situation when this occurred in the last week of May 2022, that the ATP Tour and the WA Tour each jointly stripped Wimbledon of rankings points for the men's and the women's side of the draw. And let's have a look at the thoughts that John McEnroe shared on this whole saga. With such an unfortunate situation, he just stressed there is no winner in this situation. He says it was a mistake to ban those Russian and Belarusian players. And these quotes come via Reuters news agency, which is the news wires that we hook into for a lot of our information from time to time. And he said that he knows it's a horrible, tricky, terrible situation in Ukraine, and he was just wondering if it was something to do with the UK government. Well, the speculation is none of us know. And he wished that the ATP and the WTA tours didn't decide that it was, no points. But tennis players, he said, they're like a fraternity. They travel the world, and they may speak different languages, but there's a connection in a small way. They're like a family, and they need to support each other. So far, Wimbledon, the only tournament to act in this way, banning Russian and Belarusian players. A lot of controversy and so many people upset that sport and politics should never mix. But our baseline is that, yes, that's what we would all like to be the golden rule. But let's face it, sport and politics do mix. They're interchangeable, each in good and bad ways. Is sport used for various, promoting various causes or views? Back onto the main topic, that McEnroe is saying it's difficult to see some of the best players in the world not playing because of something that they have nothing to do with. Besides, obviously, you can say that they were born in those countries and they're citizens of those countries, and as citizens of a country that's having sanctions and whatever against it, well, yes, that's true. Personally, they have nothing to do with it. But McEnroe stating he just hopes it gets resolved, and it's just a bad situation. And it's going to, as we've already noted in episode 2, our previous episode, it's going to impact significantly quite a few players. Ilya Tomiljanovic being one of them, describing how she, last year at the 2021 tournament, had her best ever result at Wimbledon, earning the most points she's ever accumulated in one tournament in her career, and she won't be able to defend those points this year, and she'll just they'll just be lost and be scrubbed off the record. Delving further into the thoughts that McEnroe shared, that he sees all players going to Wimbledon. Some of them, episode 2, we did note some of them were thinking of not going because there was no points, but McEnroe saying that the fact that there's no points, he disagrees with it, but he doesn't think and didn't think at the time that he made these comments at the end of May, he didn't think that would stop players competing in Wimbledon. At the time, he thought it would all play out okay in the end, and the top players that believe they can do well would go. And as we're recording here, it's about it's Thursday here in Australia as we're recording, that we're getting results of the second round, players going through to the third round. both women and men side of the draw. Now, he labelled it as a lose-lose situation, saying that it's been an unusually tumultuous year for tennis. And let's go back to the Australian Open. It all started with Novak Djokovic had a real problem with Australian authorities with his visa. He failed to declare his vaccination status and got into the country, was given plenty of time to provide the evidence that was required as being a entry into Australia, and he was eventually deported. And boy, when you think back to the Australian tournament and now the situation we're in, it seems like those are very simple problems that they're all so big at the time and seemingly simple now we look back on it. Especially with the retirement of Ash Barty, we thought that that was a big deal back in January. And just as a footnote, Novak Djokovic wasn't the only player to be deported from Australia coming into the country without the necessary documentation regarding a COVID status. That unfortunately poor old Czech doubles player Renata Vorakova was also deported from Australia after her visa was cancelled. She felt like a criminal and she was actually made to undress by the Australian Border Force while she was being questioned. Well, that's just how it goes with the Australian authorities at Border Force, and it's no different in the States. And I know that from a personal experience of a friend of mine experienced that as well, trying to get to the States through Hawaii, but that's a story for another day. And poor old Vorakova, she felt a little bit like a criminal. She sent all her documents, they were approved, and she said that if she knew there was even a 1% chance of something not being right, she wouldn't have gone. Anyway, the 38-year-old was sent on her way. McEnroe, as usual, being very forthright, very direct, straight talking, and what we can take from John McEnroe's comments, it's just a no-win situation for us all, but especially the people in Ukraine at the moment. They won't be thinking about winning or win-win or for or against. They'll be thinking, how am I going to get through the day and survive to see the next one and the sun come up in the country of their birth. And for the moment, we'll leave you with the sights, sounds, summer of Australia, the Australian Open 2022. Don't go away, we'll be right back. And can I just note, from an Australian perspective, that John McEnroe was actually kicked out of the Australian Open. I forget which year it was. It was his second or last ever competitive tournament in Australia, and he didn't hear a code violation from the chair umpire, and he wouldn't believe how surprised he was when he got defaulted, kicked out of the match, kicked out of the tournament. That was the end of his run. But anyway, for somebody so well versed in controversy, John McEnroe, not afraid, a very straight talking commentator of issues in world tennis, did incredibly, just a great commentator to listen to generally during matches. And just a disclaimer again, this episode and all of this series that we're running is apolitical. We're not running commentary on the politics of what's going on in Ukraine, but you can't deny that sport and politics, as much as we like to think that they shouldn't and should never and have no right to cross over. The simple fact of it is that they do, and they have, and we can run through any number of situations in the past. The boycott of the 1980 Olympics, I remember that very vividly when that happened. The current situation, the kerfuffle in Saudi Arabia with Greg Norman trumpeting the Saudi Arabian, the new tournament competing with the PGA Tour, which a lot of people are very upset about. You can look to the 2018 World Cup in Russia, the Winter Olympics in Sochi, and would we even go back as far as the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. There's been plenty of times when sport has been the loser in these situations, and there's been plenty of times when sport has been used by those that really have no right to use sport. And in closing, what really comes to mind when it comes to human rights, it would do us all well to think of the Australian sprinter, the silver medalist from the '68 Mexico Olympics, Peter Norman, who simply stood in support of the two black athletes with their Black Power salute, and he got absolutely caned for his support of human rights and supporting fellow athletes. So if there's a line, he stood on it, and he paid the price. And the only thing we can say is that there's no easy answer, black or white, in this world, and at the moment we're in the middle of a whole lot of grey. And the objective of this series was merely to aggregate the commentary and the content going around and put it all into one place and offer it up for your enjoyment, for you to digest, and you be the judge. We're just the platform for putting it all in one place that you can't find anywhere else. The sport is a great distraction and a great escape, and boy, don't we need it after 4 years of American politics, 2 years of a once in a how many thousand years pandemic, and of course where we sit now with war coming back to the fields and the cities and the populations of Europe again. It's just unimaginable, unthinkable and unwanted. But the one thing we can do is enjoy the sport that we all love to watch, contested by the players that we know so well and covered by those that we respect with their knowledge of the sport. And that's where we'll wrap up episode 3 for the time being, and stay tuned because the next episode we'll be looking into, we've already looked into the reaction of the Aussie players. We're going to dip into, in episode 4, a special 2-part episode looking into reaction of players around the globe, and also a sidetrack into the reaction of players worldwide who also happen to be Ukrainian. And also look out for our other upcoming series coming up after Wimbledon, leading into the US Open. We're going to be looking at the topic of mental health and how professional tennis players down the rankings, how those players on the Challenger and ITF circuits deal with being players travelling around the world looking to rack up rankings points so they can forge their way into the Grand Slams and the challenges they deal with. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You're listening to This Australian Open Life. You can watch us on the internet all over the world from anywhere you are. And we've also got our podcast going, of course, hosted by Acast. But you can find us on Spotify, on all those channels, the names which just escape me. Isn't that hopeless? But you can find us on wisewords.com.au. You can find the podcast and listen from the comfort of your lounge room, your laptop, your mobile, when you're on the train, when you're on the plane, anywhere in the world. This Australian Open Life will be pleased and happy to keep you company. Thanks for joining us on This Australian Open Life. You've been listening to me, the bloke who walks, sometimes known as the bloke who bangs on a bit. We're based in Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please keep following. Please keep enjoying these episodes and enjoy the tennis. We hope you're having a great time keeping an eye on these elite international tennis players. So that about wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed that very rudimentary summary. I'm not going to pat myself on the back about the quality of this episode. It was really just about bringing together all those names of all those players and just letting you know that that's where things are at. Because we live in a digital age, but it's actually sometimes not that easy to find all this information. And the Christmas, New Year's break, I mean, who wants to spend all their time looking at endless streams of apps and websites and so let us do all the hard work for you. That's what we're here for. And it's so very much appreciated that we're finding out that from most of the viewers, whether it's by comments or likes or subscriptions, that This Australian Open Life is hitting the mark for you. You've been listening to Bloke Who Walks. This was our WILDCARDS episode of the Spotlight series. Have a great new year. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you very soon. Bye for now. Based in Melbourne, Australia, This Australian Open Life is produced by Wise Words Media and Calumny Films.